This video will be a bit slipshod, and I apologize for that. What happened was I forgot to hit the record button on my OBS software, and as a result, I missed the first 3 turns of this game. So to catch you up, what's happening right now? Noise, my opponent, is making his turn. He doesn't have had any rig set up, only a couple of virus mills, but there's nothing worth getting in archives. But I do have a good setup. I have an architect on R&D, which he hasn't ran yet. I have a wraparound protecting HQ in case he plays an account siphon. Not very likely, but you never know what nasty things can come by. And I have a remote with an NAPD secured by a Viper. Now, I'm not raising the HQ ice. He has managed a successful run 3 times against my HQ. I don't care because he can see my entire hand. He cannot do anything to my hand because there are no agendas in there. I will only rest wraparound when his imp hits the table because I cannot afford to have my psychographics or mid-seasons trash. So, looking at the cards, you can probably guess. This is a rather janky deck. Definitely not planning to make it competitive or tier 1. It's basically an ambient deck that tries to use the Constellation Ice as a means to tax the runner, because the Constellation Ice have pretty decent res cost to strength ratios. They are all mid-range ice, but they provide very good strength. The only problem is they only run 1 subroutine, and that subroutine is a trace. So that's why you play it in NBN, to make use of Petri Dish, which he just milled from my R&D thanks to his medium install. So I definitely want to get Petri Dish on the board as soon as possible. This deck doesn't really run any tagging mechanisms at all. There are no data ravens, there are no information overloads. The only form of tagging is mid-seasons. My job is to tax the runner hard enough such that when they finally do steal an agenda, they are forced to eat lots of tags from mid-seasons, and I run away with the game. This is an ideal matchup for me. Noise has no link. Noise is economically very unsteady in the early game, very poor, and cannot contest my agendas. If I like my NAPD that I sneaked in the remote, he didn't even bother to run it because he knew that it was going to be an NAPD that he would have to pay a lot of money for. If he does steal an NAPD, he's definitely going to suffer for it through my mid-seasons trace. So I draw up into a second psychographics and another NAPD, and I'm getting ready to score the NAPD as well. So yeah, this deck does want to make the fullest use of NAPDs. Usually Astroscript is the best agenda, but NAPD is solid as well because it forces the runner into a horrible dilemma since it costs 4 more credits to steal. Unfortunately, he has the ideal solution, Demolition Run, with 4 nerf agent counters. A big mistake to let him collect so many nerf agent counters early on. Because of this, he manages to trash 2 of my psychographics. My Sagittarius, oh man, I really didn't want to see that Sagittarius trash. That was huge. I needed that Sagittarius. And he stole the NAPD. You could say I got very lucky here because the one card that I really wanted to keep was the mid-seasons. And 1 in 5 chance it actually remained in my hand. So I got very, very lucky here. Both psychographics are in the trash. I only have 2 psychographics in my deck, but that's okay because I have 2 Jackson Howards. As long as I can find one, it should be good. So I draw into a pack campaign. I'm installing that first so I can see what other stuff I draw. I draw into another Gemini. I have 1 Gemini as the outermost piece of ice on R&D. I'm looking to put this Gemini somewhere else as well. And what better way to put it than the HQ that was compromised just now. In case you were wondering, the inner ice of HQ was a wraparound. I didn't bother raising it, but in retrospect, I should have. I should have been attempting to tax his David because sooner or later he's going to run R&D, and my goal here is to tax his David so much that he's forced to use Deja Vu or his recursion on Davids. Gemini is 5 strength, wraparound is 5 strength. Wraparound is more than 5 strength. And yeah, those 2 will definitely tax David a lot. That is why I needed Sagittarius so badly. Sagittarius is 4 strength, just under the David range, so I can easily burn his rig if he's not careful. Unfortunately, Sagittarius is now in the heat. So he attempts to run R&D, and he makes the good call to install Mimic because there is an architect on R&D. But first he has to deal with my Gemini. Now, there's a reason why the Constellation Ice is so bad, and that's the simple reason that you don't actually have to break them. What he could have done here was to simply take the 2 net damage from Gemini and continue on. That's what I would have done. David tokens are much more valuable because, especially if you want to use your recursion, deja vus on caches and other viruses instead. So I raised the Architect. I was getting ready to install something, but I realized that he didn't have just 1 credit. He also had a Cyber Freedom credit. So he's getting through and seeing 1 card with his medium. That is unfortunate. Not much I can do about it. That's the other problem with Constellation Ice. They don't hard end the run. The only hard end the run I have is wrap around. And well, he has the solution to it in the form of David. So that's unfortunate. So here I'm just going to amass a lot of money. I'm leaving my HQ blank because last turn I started with 3 credits and I drew into a hedge fund. To play it, I needed 5 credits. So that was my turn set up for me. Unfortunately, this means that I'll let him through R&D at least 1 more time. And he sure does take advantage of it by running. That's a good thing for him to do. And I sit here holding my breath, hoping he doesn't snipe off 2 Astro Scripts. 1 Astro Script. Okay, thankfully it's not 2 Astro Scripts, but that's pretty bad. That's definitely not something I want to see. And his next run, which he definitely will be able to make, will net him 3 agendas. I could install the wraparound on R&D, and I have more than enough money to install and res it. Unfortunately, he'll just spend the 1 David token on wraparound and eat the trace. So he will still get through R&D pretty easily. So my only option at this point was to clear virus counters. Because if I didn't, he would be seeing 3 cards off the top of R&D instead of 1. I couldn't let that happen at all. Yeah. Because right now, my deck is down to nearly half its size, and so far only 3 out of 10 agendas have shown. So you have to figure that R&D is very packed of agendas. I had a very good early game. My early game, I saw almost no agendas. The only agendas I saw were the NEPDs, both of them, in the score pile now, which slowly trickled in. So yeah. The early game was very smooth. It was all money and ice, exactly what you want to see. But now I'm at a point where he can breach my servers easily, and R&D is packed with agendas that I wish I had scored earlier. So thankfully he takes a turn's worth of downtime, which allowed me to catch my breath. Here I definitely decided to install the wraparound after drawing a card with NEPD. This was a no-brainer. Medium is a very scary card, and I'm not about to let him through. As for HQ, well, I'm hoping that Gemini into wraparound can stop him. If he's foolish enough to spend his last David token on a Gemini, he will be stopped dead by a wraparound. Alright, he tutors a cache, and that means another agenda mill. Another Astro Script. Very unlucky. While all that is going on, he also parasites down my Gemini, which shows how desperate he is. So I was wondering, is it a mistake for me not to ice up archives? I think it was. What I could have done was to just throw the Sagittarius on archives earlier. I wanted to save the Sagittarius for the server that was most vulnerable. I couldn't identify that early on, but I guess I should have just placed it on archives. If it were on archives right now, I would have been able to trash 1 program from him, and I certainly would have trashed the Mimic. That would have made his life so much harder. So yeah, big mistake from me. That Sagittarius is so important. Because if you think about it, it's the only program trasher available that is out of Mimic range, that doesn't give a bad pump, that cannot be clicked through. Yes, there's a lot of conditions, but Sagittarius costs 5 to res. If you pay 3 more credits on top of it, or if you have a P3 dish lying around, you'll guarantee a program trash so long as they don't have the means to break a 4-strength sentry. And that is what I want to capitalize on. I think it is the strongest of the 4 Constellation Ice, which doesn't say much because a lot of people have compared Sagittarius to Ichi 1.0, and Ichi 1.0 is far superior. The only way in which Ichi 1.0 pales in comparison to Sagittarius is that it is clickable. Everything else about it is better. It's more taxing because it has more subroutines, and It has the same strength, same cost, same influence cost even. So yeah, Sagittarius isn't all that good and it's really the best constellation ice. Says a lot about how weak constellation ice are. Anyway, he finally finds his imp, and good for him because he gets to trash all my asset economy. But that will take a couple of turns, and I don't really need the credits right now. The good thing about this deck is that unlike most other ambient decks which want to jam in toll booths and all sorts of expensive ice, all my ice is relatively cheap. It's all low to mid-range ice. The most expensive is Sagittarius, which is 5 turrets. Well, his imp milled a bill and he won the game. So this was mostly a very unlucky game for me because his mills were very spot on, but well, it's not to say that I had no chance of winning the game. I definitely had many chances too. I just didn't take advantage of them. He made a very good play early on, as you saw his demolition run right after installing a David. That proved to be key because he didn't know what was on HQ. He made a guess that it was a wraparound and it was a right guess. I think he saw one of the eyes for accessing my servers. Made the very right call to blind demolition run with a David on. That completely killed my strategy because with a psychographics in hand, I could have fast advanced that view and I would be in a much better board state. Also, not protecting archives is a big mistake from me. I know that I want to try to play fast, that was my entire intention, but that doesn't mean that I forgo archives defense just because I want to play fast. It makes it very tempting to check archives just in case he gets an agenda, and he did that every single time he installed a virus, and it definitely paid off. I definitely should have been more careful with that. Other than that, I'll give this deck another go sometime in the future. It's not a very good deck, but it can be a bit fun, especially if you catch your opponent off guard. Thanks for watching, and happy deck running.